So, welcome everybody. My name is Marlene. I'm a health coach and a health educator with Harvard Pilgrim. And today we're going to be discussing fruits and vegetables. And my house looks and smells like a fruit market here today just for this presentation. And I'm going to be eating a lot of different fruits and vegetables myself over the next few days. What we're really going to be talking about is how you can introduce some new, maybe some different to you fruits and vegetables into your diet. For a lot of us, we're pretty satisfied eating the same kind of things day in, day out. And if that works, it's great. That's wonderful. But if you can find yourself being maybe a little bored sometimes by the options when you open your refrigerator door, um, branching out and trying new foods and new fruits and vegetables can sometimes bring back a little bit of joy. You're like, oh, I liked that. Now you're a little bit more excited about preparing your foods. You probably are not too surprised to know, but shoppers generally buy the same 5 or 6 produce items every week. Even though the produce department is enormous and there's hundreds and hundreds of things to choose from, um, most people will pick the same few things every single week. And if you aren't venturing out trying new things, you might be missing out not only on some really delicious tasting fruits and vegetables, but also some of the really important phytonutrients that you get from eating a variety of foods. Most professionals suggest that we literally eat the rainbow, if you've ever heard that expression. And that basically means that, you want to be doing foods that are all different colors, your reds and your pinks, like your cherries and beets and berries, your blues and your purples, like eggplants and blueberries, plenty of greens. We all know how important the greens are. Even the whites and browns, the mushrooms and the eggplants and, things like that, cauliflower, and yellow and orange type of food. So, eating the rainbow, it's going to reap the most rewards in terms of all the different phytonutrients because they're linked to directly to sometimes the colors of your fruits and vegetables. A survey on America's favorite vegetables found, not probably not surprising, but corn is number one. So we're hitting the yellow. Potatoes, number two, and then carrots. And tomatoes, I'll go down the list. Here we go. Tomatoes, onion, green bean, cucumber, broccoli's on there, cabbage, and then peas. So those are sort of like the top 10 that most people eat that more frequently than anything else. And that's okay. All of those are really good, healthy vegetables, but there's a lot of other vegetables similar or out there that, you might want to try. One of the most shocking things about that whole study was that about 25% of people really don't eat any vegetables. And of those who do eat some, only about a third of them actually include a vegetable or fruit at every meal. And most of us recognize we want to be eating more vegetables. 72% of population surveyed in this study said they wanted to be more vegetables. Um, and when they say 7 to 9 fruits and vegetables a day, you're looking 5 to 7 vegetables, 2 to 3 fruits. Um, it's a lot. And when you sit down and think about it, and a lot of us are not hitting that. So maybe adding some new things in will help with it. So how can we start being more adventurous with our fruit and vegetable consumption? So basically, trying new things, even if it's just a very small change, is a great place to start. So I'm going to start today with talking about leafy greens. So, we all know leafy greens are such an important part of our diet. And I don't know about you folks, but when I grew up, this was pretty much the only lettuce that, we ever saw in our house. It was an iceberg lettuce. And it's not a bad vegetable. It's very low in calories, very high in water content. But in terms of leafy green, you can see it's pretty pale in comparison to some of the others that we've gotten to enjoy. Um, Mostly water, not a whole lot of flavor. It's a little bit of crunch. For people who really are just starting out, who don't like vegetables, it's probably a great start. You're always going to see that little sad piece of iceberg sitting on foods that you might order out in a restaurant or burgers or things like that. But it does have some vitamin A, C, and K. Has a few minerals, calcium, iron, folate. So it's not a horrible choice. It's just that there are other things out there that might be more interesting. From there, we go into romaine, and I've got this adorable little head of baby romaine here, but usually it can be a much bigger, thicker head of lettuce. It's a hardy leaf, and you would see romaine is very popular for Caesar salad. So a lot of us are pretty familiar with romaine. Crunchy texture, so you can use dressings that are light, or you can use a really heavy dressing, like sometimes a creamy Caesar is pretty thick, so you want like a heavier green to stand up to that. Um, the baby romaine is a little bit more tender, so this is great if you like a softer lettuce. And although it's not huge in fiber, romaine has a lot of minerals. It's high in calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, and naturally low in sodium, packed with vitamin C and vitamin K. And it's a good source of beta carotene, which converts to vitamin A in your body. So romaine is another choice. Um, when we go from there, one of the other things that you'll see a lot of, and I think more and more of us have gotten used to including in our diet, is kale. I grabbed the baby kale because when you do the big leaves of kale, they can be very fibrous and you have to cut them and a lot of times cut the stem out. And even then, preparing them, you almost want to be massaging them with an oil. But the baby kale leaves, you're going to get just the same values that you have from the big kale, and kale is a superfood, and the reason why it contains vitamins, antioxidants, calcium, vitamin C and K, iron, a whole bunch of other nutrients, a lot of fiber. It's a member of the mustard family, like cabbage and Brussels sprouts, and it's been indicated as helping with blood pressure, boosting your digestive health, and protecting against some cancers and type 2 diabetes. So, baby kale or kale, great. You can use it as a salad. You can eat it raw. You can make kale chips out of it. You can put it in smoothies, or use it cooked like you would a spinach. And spinach is another great one. Another type of leafy green that I like to use is arugula. And this one here, again, I have the baby arugula, but you can get the heads of arugula. Um, it's a leafy green plant, lots of vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. Again, calcium, potassium, phosphorus, magnesium, high levels of vitamin C as well, and folic acids. Has some fat soluble vitamins A, E, and K, and small amounts of vitamin D. So some of these vegetables with fat soluble elements, using them with an oil or a fat, like a salad dressing, actually allows you to access, because fat soluble vitamins are accessed in fat. Packed with antioxidants and phytochemicals. And it has a little bit of a peppery taste, so it gives you a little bit of interesting taste with it. And the interesting thing about arugula versus, say, spinach leaves or whatever, is that it's low in something called oxalates. And oxalates are a chemical that can sometimes inhibit your ability to absorb some of the minerals in your body for some people. So if you want all the value of the green, but you're trying to limit oxalates because you're not getting the mineral absorption, arugula is a really nice choice. So those are some of the more, probably more well-known greens, but there's a whole bunch of other things out there. So for instance, beets, we all know beets are delicious these days, but beet greens, which is actually the top of a beet, and I left this little one attached here. Beet greens, the tops of these are completely edible, and they have a lot of vitamin K, and that vitamin K is linked to a lower chance of developing type 2 diabetes. It's also helpful with bone health and with uh, circulation. 1 cup of this provides about twice your daily requirement of vitamin K. It's a green that you can certainly chop and eat raw after you rinse it and clean it, but it's great if you saute it with some olive oil and garlic, added to soup, so frittatas, pasta, things like that. So beet greens are another wonderful way to just add a few greens in. And if you're buying these packages of greens, the mixed greens, you'll often see beet greens as part of that. Another really interesting green that maybe you haven't tried would be watercress. Watercress is very similar to arugula in that it has that sort of peppery taste, and it's rich in vitamin A, C, and K. And it's a nice light little green. I'm going to take some out of the package here. which you can, just add. A lot of people use it as a garnish, but it's a terrific green to just add into sandwiches. A nice tender green gives it a little bit of a bite. So watercress is a nice green to add too if you've never tried that. And then, when we look at those smaller greens, there's a whole lot of microgreens out there now. And microgreens are really interesting because you can grow them yourself at home. They don't take a lot. There's kits that you can grow microgreens right under your sink and such. So there are different ones, like these are beet microgreens, arugula microgreens. You might find kale microgreens, different things. And the things with microgreens are, they're just baby versions of the plant itself. So it's seeded, and as soon as it starts popping up, that's when they are harvested, and they can be higher in the nutrients than their mature plants that they're associated with. And they come in a whole bunch of flavors from peppery to tangy. Great way to just add some interest to a salad, even if you're using like a basic romaine or even iceberg and you want to add some interest, popping some microgreens in there. It makes a great garnish, making a dish look prettier. Great to just, eat in general, adding to soups and stews and such like that. So microgreens are another really interesting way to increase the nutrient content and try some new greens. And usually they're a little bit gentler, tender. So if you're thinking you might want to try beet greens, maybe start with the microgreens and see if you like them and then kind of develop a taste for it. Swiss chard is another interesting green that you can get. And there's rainbow. This one is the red stem, but there's also kinds that have somewhat rainbow Swiss chard, and they have different colors. And you can eat both the stem and the leaf. The rainbows and the color is based, the name is based on the color of the stem, actually. They're both great sources of lutein, which is a great antioxidant. We always think about carrots for your eyes, but they are a great source of lutein, which is good for your eyes. You can lightly steam it, toss it in a vinaigrette. You can use the leaves. Here's a leaf of one. This makes a really great leaf if you're trying to do, low carb and you want a leaf to do a sandwich in or tortilla. It makes a great leaf for that. So Swiss chard is something that you might want to try for that. And it just has a nice texture and it would hold up pretty well to some kind of a sandwich thing. So that's our Swiss chard. So those are some interesting greens, and there are many others, and there are variations of each. So if you walk into the grocery store, you can get a little creative, even if you just, as I say, start out by trying a little bit in with the greens that you typically use and doing a little taste test. And some you might not like raw, but maybe if you sauteed them with olive oil or citrus. And oftentimes if you find a green or any vegetable really that has a sort of bitterness to it, if you add a citrus vinaigrette, it's going to bring that flavor up and make it a little less bitter. So let me pop those back. So Swiss chard. So watercress, when we went through all those, good. Dandelion green. So this is another interesting one. I want to group this. So when you're out and about and you see all little dandelions growing in the ground, and we can use all the products to try to kill them off, but dandelions and dandelion greens are actually a very healthy green to eat. They can be eaten raw or cooked. Now, that doesn't mean you want to go out onto your lawn and pick up your dandelions and grab the greens, because unfortunately, most of that has been treated with pesticides, and you don't want to be eating pesticides. So dandelion greens are actually sold in the groceries, and you can cook these or eat them raw. Excellent source of vitamins A, C, and K. They contain E, folate. But one of the interesting things is that they they help to regulate your blood pressure. It's sort of like a detoxifying. One of the elements in here is very detoxifying for your body, and it regulates blood pressure, digestion, helps to strengthen your bone. It has a somewhat bitter taste, but there's a lot of ways you can add it to a salad. And again, if you're using a dressing, sometimes that would be helpful. Citrus rich or a sweet vinaigrette would help with that bitterness. You can add these to smoothies. A lot of people will dry them and make tea out of it because of the cleansing effect that it has, sort of like milk thistle would be, to help, support your liver function for cleansing. So dandelion greens, who knew, right? We're constantly trying to get rid of them out of our lawn, but they actually have healthy benefits to us. Um, let's see. So then bok choy is another interesting green. You see the big heads of this. I have the little baby ones. I'm a big fan of baby vegetables because they add dandelion added to milk thistle supplements. Yes, that's absolutely true because both of them are, I'm answering, I'm sorry, I'm going back and forth, but I'm answering chat. You're right, dandelion green added to milk thistle because they're both supposed to be help to detoxify the body and they help support liver function. So anyway, here we go. Here's our little bok choy. Now, bok choy is a member of the cabbage family. Has fiber, protein, again, vitamin A and C, lots of antioxidants. This you'll see often in Asian cooking, and it can be cut up in a quick stir fry. Or you could cook. You could use the greens of this and use this in a salad with just a vinaigrette. So bok choy. This is the baby one, which I thought was so adorable. But they usually come in big heads. So this is another green you could use, although it's part of the cabbage family. Now, speaking of cabbages, cabbage was actually on the list of vegetables that Americans do eat. And, I think based on ethnicity, certain vegetables are used more frequently in certain ethnicities. And cabbage is one of them. Who doesn't hear about corned beef and cabbage on St. Patrick's Day? But there are a lot of different kinds of cabbage out there as well. We're probably more familiar with the green cabbage, but regardless of what color it is, it has a lot of health benefits. This is a beautiful purple cabbage here. Generally, the darker colored cabbages are going to have a little bit more of certain amounts of vitamins, anthocyanins, they call them, and that's like an antioxidant. The color is reflective of an antioxidant and anti-inflammatory. However, green cabbage doesn't mean it's not as nutritious. Green cabbage would have more of, say, vitamin K compared to red cabbage, but they have different values. That's why trying different variations of vegetables, even that you're already eating, is a good idea. Now, this is absolutely beautiful looking vegetable. You could slice this up the way you would make a coleslaw and add this with green cabbage and carrots and have a really beautiful colored base for a coleslaw. So, in food, sometimes we eat with our eyes first before we ever taste it. So I would recommend trying that. Another type of cabbage is uh, my little Brussels sprouts here, and they look like mini cabbages because that's exactly what they are. They are a delicious way to add some more of these cruciferous vegetables to your diet. And we know the cruciferous vegetables are so important because they act like little, Pac-Man cleaning machines. They really help your digestive system. They help to cleanse. Vitamins, Brussels are also rich in vitamin C, vitamin B6, A and K again, lots of fiber, which is a great thing, and then your minerals, your manganese, copper, and potassium. So these are great and they can be prepared in so many ways: roast, broil, fry. I've been slicing them in half and just adding a little olive oil and some seasoning, salt and pepper, and putting them in my air fryer, and they come out so nice and crunchy. And then I'll serve them with a vinaigrette I make with a little red wine and Dijon mustard and olive oil and some spices. So Brussels sprouts, little teeny powerhouses of important vitamins and antioxidants. So those are a lot of our greens and our cabbages. And then another big category is root vegetables. So when we think about root vegetables, we're frequently think about things like carrots and potatoes, things that grow under the soil, the root of the vegetable. So I don't know about you, but growing up, my mother was Irish, and the poor woman, she peeled more potatoes than I could ever imagine, and mashed potatoes, baked potatoes. But we often had russet potato, which is pretty common in this area. But as I've gotten a little older and explored, I like trying different kinds of potatoes. Now you'll find these little bags of little ones, but like Yukon Gold has a much, I'm using the mini versions again, but much a very buttery flavor, different than russet. red potatoes. You might use these in a red bliss potato salad, things like that. And now you're seeing a lot of potatoes even in darker colors. So when we're trying to eat the rainbow, you've got these purple potatoes, which actually, when you slice open, and I'll slice one open inside, they're actually purple all the way through. So you are getting a little bit more of the rainbow when you mix these up. And again, it makes a beautiful presentation to have on the plate when you're doing a lot of different potatoes. So that's probably the most common root vegetable that we talk about. Carrots are another one. And interestingly enough, I'm sure you've seen, we're used to the orange carrot, great for your eye health. You know, Bugs Bunny always had his carrot. So, but there are a lot of new, not necessarily new, but hybrids of carrots, things like this purple one. And again, the purple carrot couldn't be more beautiful inside. It's orange in the deep center and then purple on the outside. So a great way to add something interesting to your crudité dish or whatever. And another one is parsnip. So parsnip is an interesting one. If you haven't tried these yet, they're a cream colored, they're a winter root vegetable. It's very much closely related to carrots, but also to parsley, which is interesting. The taste is somewhat complex. They're sweet like a carrot, but they also have more starch in them. So they have an earthier and nuttier taste. And they have a good amount of fiber in them, potassium, vitamin C, magnesium. These are terrific. I like to add these to my soups because they do have sort of a sweetness and it mellows. But I also roast these and they come out, you know, when you roast a vegetable, it concentrates the natural sugars in them and they come out very sweet. So if you haven't tried parsnip, someone just discovered it last year. Yeah, it's great. Anything I mean, soups, crock pot meals, roasted plain. You could peel this and put it on a crudité for people. You know, it's going to be a little bit hard to crunch, maybe not quite as sweet as the carrot, but it's a terrific vegetable to try. So parsnips, and then again, I love all these multicolored carrots that are coming out. They're just so pretty to use in your dishes. So we've got potatoes, we've got carrots. Now, when we talk about potatoes, we're saying the white potato is pretty much what most people are using, right? But there are a lot of other choices out there. You've got a lot of different sweet potatoes. Now, one of the big questions is sweet potatoes or yams? What's the difference? Because when you go to the grocery store, you'll see, you know, both written. But predominantly in the USA, we deal with sweet potatoes. Yams, I guess, and I didn't know this till I looked it up, are really more North African vegetable, and they're a little drier. But in this country, we kind of use the terms interchangeably, but there is a slight difference. So when it comes to sweet potatoes, most of us are probably familiar with the basic orange sweet potato, and this is, you know, they're wonderful. But then there are a lot of others. You have the Japanese sweet potato, you got purple sweet potatoes, the garnet, which are a little bit more red. And then you have these called Hana sweet potatoes, like a white sweet potato. And they all have slightly different flavor profiles. Some might taste a little sweeter than others. Some might require a little bit more cooking time. But even though they are a starchy vegetable, sweet potatoes are lower on the glycemic index, meaning that they are less likely than like a regular white potato to spike your blood sugar. So, and then the purple types, again, we have those anthocyanins, the flavonoids that have been shown to be beneficial for your liver, and the different colors, the yellows and the oranges have the carotenoids, which are beneficial for your vision, cognitive function, and cardiovascular. So try different ones. They're all delicious. I happen to love the purple Japanese sweet potatoes. Those are good too. So great way to try different root vegetables there. So beets are another one. We looked at the beet greens, but you know, beets have one of the most nutritious root vegetables available. And they have a lot of fiber, folate, manganese. But more importantly, particularly the red beet, they can help to dilate. They're high in nitrates, and nitrates help dilate your blood vessels, so that can potentially lower your blood pressure. It can improve heart health. If you eat them, it can improve exercise performance because the nitrates allow your blood to circulate quicker, increasing blood flow to your extremities as well as to your brain. So, and beetroot extract has been shown to have in animal studies some anti-cancer properties as well. So, beets are a wonderful little root vegetable use for many of us, and I know again in my house growing up, the beets came out of a jar and they were pickled and they were kind of wet and slimy. So I never really liked beets for a long, long time until I discovered the actual beet roots in the grocery, and I scrub them if it's a thin skin, or I peel them. The golden beets I absolutely love. They don't have the same nitrate levels as the red beets, but they're so delicious. But peel these. I love to roast these up and have them on hand to add to salads and stuff. So beets are a really nice additional root vegetable to try outside of the canned yams and the canned beets and the jarred beets. Although when they do pickle them, you do get the benefits of that as well. So these are the beets. That's another one. Now, here's another rather unusual root vegetable. This is celery root. This is actually the root celeriac, I think they also call it. This is the root of the celery under the ground. And we pick the stalk off, but the root is actually edible and loaded with health benefits. Can improve digestion, bone and heart health, possible anti-cancer effects. You can eat it raw or cooked. Basically it looks like a lot of work. You kind of have to, cut off the edges and then peel it back, and then you can slice it. It can be sliced, grated into salads or in a coleslaw, boiled and mashed as an alternative to potatoes, roasted or baked like potatoes. You can blend it in soups, sauces, pies, casseroles, things like that. So this is a rather interesting, I'll hold it up a little closer. Looks very unusual. You wouldn't necessarily think you could eat it, but definitely worth a try if you're looking to change things up a little bit. And then another root vegetable that I have here, this is jicama, which Jicama in the grocery store. In Mexico, jicama is a pretty popular root vegetable that is used a lot more than we maybe use it in, but some of the South American countries use it more frequently. It's got a thick brown skin and it's white inside. So what's interesting is it looks like a cross between a potato and an apple. And some people say that that's what the taste is like, a kind of a cross between a potato and an apple. The flesh of it is similar to a potato, but it has a lot less carbohydrates than potatoes do. So for some people, this makes a nice option instead of that. Fiber, vitamin C, B6, antioxidants, some prebiotic fibers, which, they populate your gut health, and a low glycemic load. So it really doesn't affect your blood sugar much. You want to wash it, cut off the roots, peel it. You can cut it in half and then cut it into slices. You can eat this raw with a little bit of lemon or lime juice and chili powder or salt. It can be part of a crudité. You can pickle it. You can make coleslaw out of it. Use it to add a little bit of crunch to a salad or serve it like a cucumber on crudité. So jicama is another interesting one if you haven't tried it. Yes, it does look like a heart, doesn't it? And it's solid. It's a pretty heavy vegetable. Okay, terrific. Okay, so those are our potatoes and our root vegetables. And I'm just going to move this out of the way real quick so we can look at some more interesting things. As I said, I have a lot of vegetables here. I'm going to be eating a lot of vegetables for the next few days. So I want to talk about squashes. Squashes are another thing where if you look in the grocery store, you might be used to buying the same butternut squash every year that you serve, things like that. But there are a lot of different squashes. You have winter squashes and summer squashes, and in the world we live in, they're kind of available pretty much year round. So let's talk about summer squash because we're in summer. So summer squash, you've got your basic zucchini and yellow squash. It surprised me that these weren't necessarily on the most popular list because I always think of them as just so versatile in terms of vegetables. But these are terrific. You can use them in crudité, eating them raw, put them in salads. They're great in stir fries. You often see them in Italian dishes. These two squashes sliced and cooked together with some olive oil and potentially carrots or another vegetable are often served as a side, a vegetable side in restaurants. So these are great. But another great way to use either of these is to spiralize them and use them in place of pasta for a very low calorie, low carbohydrate pasta. So I would do that frequently as well. Spaghetti squash is another one. Now, spaghetti squash is something that you would have to roast, and oftentimes I'll microwave it for a couple minutes just to soften it so I can slice it, peel the seeds out, roast that up, and then you take a fork and you string it. And the reason why it's called spaghetti squash is because it comes out looking like spaghetti and it has a really nice bite and crunch. So it stands up really well to pasta sauces as a substitute for spaghetti. So then you go into the winter squashes, and there's so many beautiful ones. I mean, we use them as decorations in the fall because they're absolutely gorgeous. But acorn squash, this is a delicata squash, and most of them, again, can be prepared by being sliced, roasted, and peeled and used. You can mash them. You can roast them with just, some of them have a sweet flavor. I know every Thanksgiving, my sister does acorn squash and she slices it so it maintains the shape and fills it with a little crab stuffing. So, really wonderful way to use different squashes. So, I would recommend just experimenting a little with those as well when you're out and about. So, those are our vegetables. Now, broccoli was actually on the list of favorites, which is really encouraging to see because broccoli is definitely a superfood. It is closely related to the cabbages, so it's cruciferous in that state. Things like Brussels and kale and cauliflower, they're all kind of part of that same genre. And um, broccoli is a powerhouse full of vitamins, minerals, fiber, antioxidants, anything that, so many things that can enhance your health. And so broccoli is, and it's beautiful. And again, you can eat it raw, you can steam it, you can roast it, you can use it in soups. And I mean, it's just such a versatile vegetable. It's one of those things that I think people love to have on hand. But there are ways to experiment with other types of foods if you love broccoli. Now, what I have here, many of you might know about broccolini, which is long, thin strips of broccoli, and that's part of the broccoli family. That's great. You can use that in the same way. What I have here, which looks a lot like broccoli, it has the little tip like a broccoli does, is broccoli rabe. And broccoli rabe, you would see in an awful lot of Italian cooking. It is a cruciferous vegetable. It really is not from the broccoli family, though. It is more closely related to a turnip, which is interesting. But it's often cooked like other leafy greens would be. The stem, the leaves, and the head of this is all edible. And when it's eaten raw, it can be very bitter. So cooking and flavoring it, that's why in Italian restaurants you'll see it maybe sautéed in olive oil. Commonly used for pasta, excuse me, soups, Italian soups, and mixes well with pasta as well. So broccoli rabe is a really nice side dish that you might want to try. It's going to have a little bit more peppery flavor, a little more flavor than the broccoli itself. Check my time here. Oops, are we done? Oh my goodness. And then I'm going to end with this. This is a Romanesco, which is considered to be a hybrid between cauliflower and broccoli. And cruciferous. What's beautiful about this is that the heads are look little spirals and just another delicious way. It has an earthy, nutty flavor. Man, this program could go on for another hour. I didn't realize how long it was going to be, but this is great. You can steam it, eat it raw, stir fry, everything else. So that's where I'm going to end with showing you different fruits and vegetables. But I did want to just, say, there's so many different varieties between our onions and mushrooms and fruits and vegetables, so many different varieties of things out there. And when we get really stuck in our routines, you are, just maybe get a little bored with your food. Go into the grocery store and try something new. And one thing I will tell you is that the produce manager in most of your grocery stores are a wealth of knowledge about different fruits and vegetables. If you see something that looks interesting and you're not sure about it, and one of the produce people is hanging around, ask them for information on what it is, where it comes from, how to prepare it. They are a wealth of knowledge. And of course, you know, Google, Pinterest, anything else, there's always all kinds of ways to do that. Yeah, interesting about peppers because they are they you I buy them every week, so same thing, and they're very versatile. So that's an interesting one too. I don't know how old that study was, Tawny. I'm reading from the thing here, but I'm sure that like anything else, it changes occasionally. And another note I just want to make, if you have a few minutes, I will stay on, is that the some fruits and vegetables, if you eat them all the time, you want to check and see what is on the Dirty Dozen list. It's a list that's put out by the Environmental Working Group. It's updated usually every year. And what it is it tells you the fruits and or vegetables that have the highest uh, content of pesticides and where you would want to buy those organic whenever possible. Because if it's something you're eating all the time, you want to make sure that you're not ingesting a lot of other pesticides and chemicals. Um, so you know what? We didn't get to everything that I have here with fruits and vegetables, but I will just end with saying, get out there and try something new. The next time you're out doing your grocery shopping or, at your local farm stand, pick up something that you don't normally eat and, speak to the person about it or go home and Google it and try something new and see. Earlier, someone asked about what fruits and vegetables might be good for someone who doesn't usually like them, and that's where I think that the baby greens and the baby fruits and vegetables might be a good way to start with that because they have a milder flavor in general. And crudité, Crudite, and it simply means when you chop vegetables and things like that, and you're putting it out with hummus and dips. That would be crudité. Somebody asked about that one. What is the other one? Not the summer squash. So that was zucchini and summer squash. I hope I answered that question. If I didn't answer your question and you want to post it up, I've got another minute or two here, and I'd be happy to answer that now. And I hope you all enjoyed this. And, as I said, when you're out and about, the one that I paired with the zucchini was summer squash. So that's this one, a yellow squash. Okay. And it pairs really well because they both cook pretty well. The mushrooms that I have, I brought a portobello mushroom because, most of us use the little white button mushrooms, but portobello mushroom I thought was a really interesting one because it has a heavy texture and a chew. So if you're trying to move into like a meatless Monday or trying to move away from eating meats, portobellos make a great base for that because they're heavy. You can grill them. I take the gills out and I um, put some olive oil, and then I use the base of these as a pizza. So these are really terrific that way as well. So portobellos, and then shiitake. If you're going for sliced mushrooms, shiitake versus the plain white mushrooms, great because it has a little bit of a bite to it. It's more of an Asian. You see it in stir fries and things. So hopefully that answered your question. Okay. Well, I wish I could stay here all day and talk about fruits and vegetables because there's so much to talk about. And I'm so glad that you all joined, and I hope you got some new information that will make you want to go out and try something a little bit different, a little bit new when you're out in the grocery store today. Okay, I think that's it for questions. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Andrea. I'm going to log off and get ready for my next presentation. But thank you all so very much and have a wonderful day. And remember, eat the rainbow.